talking.
Pardon?
Tell me the spiel. Give me the spiel.
What do you want me to do with just cold turkey?
Yeah, just do cold turkey because people will tune in and listen. So they will ask questions. Talk to me.
Well, as I say, I'm not speaking to anybody. I'm not speaking to any mind. So I'm not speaking to the body-mind entity that we're all taking ourselves to be, all these persons around the world. What I'm speaking to is the I am that I am. And that I am is not the thought I am. It's the sense of presence. Each one of us is present and aware right now. And we can't negate that sense of being or that beingness, which that sense of presence which expresses through the mind as that thought, as the thought I am. Just to this, nothing else. This is all what has been grasped and recognised over the years, that what the ancients have been telling us, old text scriptures and stories from way back have been telling us all the years, there's only the one essence. And that's all there is. One essence expressing, patterning, shaping and forming is everything. And all these myriads of forms in this cosmos, planets, stars, atoms, neutrons, electrons, whatever else that are still what makes this cosmos, if you like to call it that or whatever it is, universe tick. Simplest way to put it, I think, is just it's all a vibrating pattern of intelligence. And the way it vibrates is intelligence, not intellects, which one thinks more than another, but the innate intelligence is suffusing every particle of it. And how many intelligences are there? We've got the idea or concept that we can divide them, but they tell us all along it's always and ever and only been the one. And I am that one. You are that one. As it's only the one, separate something from it if you can. Got another way to put it, the absolute, or the great perfection. What can you add to the absolute or the great perfection? Not one atom, not one particle at all. Otherwise it wouldn't be absolute. What can you take away from it? Nothing whatsoever. So it's always and ever been that, what they call that. And surely, with a little bit of recognition, you must recognise that I am that. That is what I am already. That is what you are. That is what this is. That is what that is. Only and ever that. But a myriad of different ways, insects, birds, animals, and all the rest that it expresses, shows the wondrous intelligence and amazing intelligence that it is. Volcanoes imploding and exploding, stars, planets doing the same thing, forming, patterning, shaping, seemingly hanging around on some time scale, appearing and disappearing. And is there such a thing as a time scale? Could it be divided up without seemingly appearing to be time? But investigate and see if you can find such a thing as time. Is there a beginning to it? Is there an end to it? Or is it all spontaneous? Spontaneous as it's beginning, so it's ending. As it's ending, so it's beginning. No any duration to it. No point of beginningness or conceptual finish to it. It's ever fresh, ever new, and constantly and ever spontaneously patterning, shaping and forming. And that's all these wondrous patterns, shapes and forms in it. As they call it in Hinduism, Satchitananda. Existence, consciousness, bliss. The other two factors are nama rupa, name and form. But the name are the words or labels we put on things, and the form is what it expresses through. This body, the name we put on it is body, but there's the form, and we couldn't use that name if it didn't have a form to express through. And there couldn't be a form if it wasn't the opposite. So it always divides into pairs of opposites. Nama rupa, name and form. Existence, consciousness, bliss. Another word for that is being, knowing and loving to be. Anyone who is not being, that's listening to this right now, if you're listening to it, how could you say I'm not being? Anyone who is not conscious right now, if you're not conscious or unaware or asleep or out of it, how could you say anything about it? So you must be that consciousness or awareness already. You're being and you're knowing and you're loving to be right now. So what's all the fuss about? Trying to find something or become something. And that is the fuss. Trying to find or become something instead of recognising what is already there. Recognise, recognise. And the Buddha called it a cognising emptiness, is one of the ways he put it. So whenever he was supposed to be around, if he ever was, who cares? Well, anyway, it's just another pattern, shape and form that's been the one essence. And he made the statement that emptiness is form, pointing out clearly what I'm trying to express or point out here, that it's all the same emptiness before it vibrates into pattern, shapes and forms, and even as it vibrates into pattern, shapes and forms. It's always and never and only that. And he made a statement that emptiness is form, pointing out that. It's all the form which we put the label on. And he called it a cognising emptiness. And we can say that, but if we've never investigated, what do we believe? We believe we are cognising the emptiness. But we're not. We can't cognise anything as these human pattern shapes and forms because that's all they are, name and form. It's the vibration, pattern of energy. But the essence that's forming those is the one essence that's patterning, shaping and forming and expressing and everything. And he told us that because his emptiness is form. And he said the form, you, me and everything else, can be nothing other than the emptiness. And what do we believe? We believe we are this person, this individual, this separate entity, this body-mind entity. And it's all emptiness. And that emptiness is fused with that innate knowing or intelligence, a cognising. That's another term for cognising is knowing. It's a knowing emptiness. And isn't that so? Anyone who is not knowing right now, and our problem is, instead of just realising that it's that pure knowing that is expressing through and vibrating as this pattern, shape and form, as these bodies, as these minds, as this cosmos. It's that one essence that's doing the same thing. And the form can be nothing other than the emptiness. Still only the emptiness. Now how would you translate that? You translate that, the knowing that you are as that sense of presence, I am. And if it's all form is emptiness, emptiness is form, I must be that, emptiness or form, whichever way you like to put it. Because it's both ends of the one stick, if you like to hear it that way. No one-ended stick. Each stick has two ends to it. And so you can see why it's constantly sliding into one of the opposites or the other. Why it's seemingly divided and separating continually. To give it some seeming meaning. Not just saying that it's doing it, it's happening spontaneously. Day is following night, winter's following summer, silence following sound, movement, stillness, earth rolling around the sun, seasons coming and going. It's all happening naturally, effortlessly and spontaneously. Separate yourself from it if you can and recognise that it's only that. Ever was, ever will be and ever can be. And every seeming thing that has appeared in it and disappeared in it has been that one essence. And as the Buddha says again in one of his statements, every sentient being is being your father and your mother. And you're appearing as a sentient being right now. So you realise if every sentient being, it's a sentient being that's been right now, you must have been the father and mother of everything already. Seeing there's no beginning to it, no separation, no start, no finish. It's always ever been that essence emanating, appearing, seemingly so. But then we look at ourselves and see all the psychological suffering that's going on in this seeming manifestation. And then the body-mind entities, the appearance of separate entities, separate appearances, seemingly. All sorts of things going on. With us, how's it coming about? Us so-called humans. We learnt the word. Tells you in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. That's all that God is a word. Another label we put on the totality and seemingly divided up. Now we divide into something superior, something greater than what we are. But if it's all the one, who's greater, what's less than it? What can be greater or lesser than it? Can't be anything. The seeming division is a fiction. And it's all happened because we'd learnt words. Now, the word's a very useful thing. It's not the enemy. But see how it functions. And you'll see it's a vibration, a movement of energy that's appearing on the silence, on the stillness, as sound, for a starter. Sound. And it's a subtle sound in the first one. It's a sound, a subtle vibration taking place in what you call memory, or in the silent mind. It vibrates as sound. And sounds, every word you've ever spoken is a sound. And the meaning to it, the idea of it, is how it forms. I, me, you, past, present, future, happy, sad, good, bad, all words. And that's where the seeming manifestation begins. With the beginning was the Word. When the Word, we learnt words. What were you before you had the Word? Were you born with any words? Have a look at that. If you were born with any words, you'd remember your birth. But can anyone remember your birth? You can't. Yet you're living for the first couple of years of your life, getting on quite well. You're pretty helpless at that stage because we haven't learnt the capacity of reason. But we're seemingly helpless as far as we carry on in the world today. That little embryo, that little child, that wasn't helpless. It was knowing what to do. When that birth came about, it knew to take the first breath, and the heart started to beat, and things started to happen from then on, but they were growing in the womb also. And what were you as this entity, this wonderful person you think, yeah, what were you doing about it then? Where did you begin? Question it. Have a look, question some of these things we've taken on. And realise, as they say, they tell you in the scriptures, that the false cannot stand up to investigation. The false cannot stand up to investigation. So it needs to be investigated. It needs to be looked at. And who needs to look at it? The believed in entity, this separate entity, this individual we've taken ourselves to be, that's suffering and fearful, and got the belief that it's not whole or complete. And it's got to become something. So that's where all the problem comes from. And again, as I say, you can't remember your birth. And yet for 9 months in the womb you were growing, and the first couple of years out of it before you learnt the capacity of reading developed in you, and you learnt words before that came upon you. You were getting on all right without the word. Just the same as the manifestation, where there are no words are not in the bare manifestation. How many words are the earth using to roll around the sun, for the seasons to come and go, and the tides to come in and out? It's all functioning naturally, effortlessly and spontaneously, knowing what to do, forming pattern shapes and forms, and realise that how did you begin? Look at that. Well, see, go back as far as your parents, which are your father and your mother, and go back further than that if you want to see how this comes about. Question it yourself, and it reveals itself to you. Different patterns, shapes and forms, in words if necessary. How did you begin? You'll say, I was born, you can't remember your birth, you didn't have any words. Well, when did you begin? Go back as far as your father and your mother, that patterns that shaped and formed you. That animating life essence, what I call animating life essence, or intelligence energy. That's what life is, intelligence energy. Intelligence being a knowing. And any knowing is an activity, a movement of energy. And it's knowing through words, sounds, vibrations, sights, feeling, heartbeat, all different patterns in these body, mind entities, we call it. How did it come about? Well, that animating life essence, a pattern shaped and formed your father, enabled in that pattern a little microscopic particle called a sperm to form. Through the essence of the breath, the form is taking what is necessary out of that air, and the body, mind, the food, the essence of the food eaten, enable a little microscopic particle called a sperm to form. Now that sperm wasn't just a dead object, it was suffused with intelligence. It knew what to do. And the same with the mother, that animating life essence in your mother, enabled in that pattern, a little microscopic particle called an ovum or an egg to form. And that ovum was suffused with an innate intelligence. It knew what to do. Because the ovum has attached itself to the wall of the uterus. And the sperm swam to the ovum, implying no suffused with innate intelligence. How did they know to do that? How did the egg know to attach itself to the wall of the uterus? How did the sperm know to swim to the ovum and to penetrate it? Doesn't it imply that those two particles were suffused with an innate intelligence? And what happened when they came together? And the sperm penetrated the ovum and they came together. What happened then? The natural intelligence, knowing what to do, doubled that cells through the genes, and again the food essence and that was in those two coming together, doubled that cells, doubled it again, and began to form the little embryo, the little fetus, which is what you are today. We don't realise we're still that little embryo, little fetus, that things have been added to, it's seemingly grown. We don't see in its natural state what it naturally is. So,
would you like a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have about 20 people watching with us, and there is a question from Paula. How do you separate 20 years of chronic pain and having terminal disease and still stay not depressed?
Still saying what to?
How do you stay out of depression
Yeah.
if you have the chronic pain for 20 years and terminal disease?
And permanently.
Disease, terminal disease.
Well, investigate it and see. If pain is there, how can you say it's pain? Well, it's felt sensation, which we call pain, just a pure sensation, which is called pain, and that labour put onto it in the labour beginning. And what's the opposite of pain? Pleasure. Isn't that the way this thing we call mind operates? Dualistically, always in the interrelated pairs of opposites. Good, bad, pleasant, painful, happy, sad, loving, hating, positive, negative. Look at your mind and see if it functions any other way than vibrating into these opposites. And the boundaries and limitations we're putting upon it are the word. All these words we've learned. There's a sensation there in a little baby that it's pain. But he doesn't know it's pain. It's pain, you know, it's a sensation that makes him cry or whatever, you know, uneasy, diseased. And he doesn't learn what it is until later on when he learns words. And he calls it pain. So we have this pain coming up, and what's it related to? It's related to the image we've got about ourselves. We build this mental image or conceptual image. And these words, when they come up, they're vibrating in our pairs of opposites. Now, instead of them seeing them fresh and new sensations, thought, feeling and emotion, thought is the words or the sound coming out. The feeling is the sensation, and that feeling, kept there long enough, becomes emotional. Now, instead of seeing it as fresh and new, like everything is fresh and new, there's nothing static in the manifestation. It's constantly transient, it's constantly changing. We don't see these fresh and new because we've loaded these down onto the conceptual image. Well, this is fear, this is pain, this is anguish, this is depression, this is guilt. is shame, this is remorse. We lay them down instead of saying each sensation is a fresh and new sensation. If we see it as it comes up in the moment, and you haven't got the old label to put on it, what are you going to you're going to really look at it and test it out. And in the testing out, in the investigation, it mightn't be what we've seemingly believed it to be. Years and years of reinforcing it, as soon as a sensation comes up, we immediately jump into it. This is fear, this is sensation, this is unhappiness, this is guilt. You know, and that sense of joy might come up, you know what that is straight away also, you see. But we keep reinforcing the fears, the anguish and the stress, and then what comes up, instead of seeing all these things fresh and new, which everything is spontaneously fresh and new, we load it down with the old label from memory and what we've done and leave, and so we don't get to see it. So we're behind the 8 ball and we start off, instead of seeing everything is fresh and new, we put all the old images, the old concepts, the old language on it, and they bring up the old sensations or feelings with them, and we go into it again and again. And as we say, we've had this one for years and years, and believe it to be, and then what we do, we don't look to question it and have a look into it. We go about, what am I going to do to get rid of it? We're going to resist it, to try and get rid of it, force it away. But resistance, any resistance you are in, is you're in conflict with it then. So we're constantly in conflict with all these fears, anxiety, stresses. And the conflict makes us anxious, fearful, guilty, uneasiness. And another word for that uneasiness is disease. So that's what's going on in these bodies, resistance, conflict and disease. The same when something comes up I don't like. The one that we like, the man comes up spontaneously we like, we want to keep it there. Not realising that everything in this manifestation is transient. It's all constantly changing. Nothing static in it whatsoever. We don't want it to go, we want to keep it there, so we resist it. But now, when something comes up that I don't like, what do? We don't like this one, we don't want this fear, we don't want this anger. What do? We resist it. Try and force it out. And resistance again is conflict, and conflict is disease. We're uneasy. So you see, by trying to get rid of it, well, naturally you'll do what you can if it's something physical to heal it and all the rest of it. It doesn't mean to say you're going to ignore it. But the other one, instead of what would happen if you didn't keep reinforcing it? You saw it just as it is. All right, there's this sensation is there, and I'm just seeing it for the first time, and I'm not going to put the old label on it. Really have a look at it. Really go into it. Instead of moving away, as soon as we got it now, we move away from it. In trying to resist it, you're in conflict with it. How long are you going to try and cling to it then if you're in conflict? You try to move away from it and resist it. Instead of letting it as it is, haven't you looked through other things throughout your life? You know, we're all yesterday's or last week's or last year's patterns, shapes and forms. Anything there that's static, or is everything changed? Hasn't your body itself changed? It's constantly transient, changing right now. Everything around you is constantly transient and changing. But the old labels, the old concepts we cling to, and they're causing upsets, disturbances in the physical apparatus, yeah. But look into them, see what can be done. See what you can do about them physically. Go to a doctor or something because they can have. Or question it, investigate it and see if the thought is really the thing.
Can I add something?
Can
I add something to
Yes.
it? Yes, so I'm really sorry for everyone who lives in that pain, whether it is you, Paula, or someone you know. We did have a few people who came here to the meetings who do live with the chronic pain for 20 years. And the things we actually learned from them is that the pain is never constant. If it was constant, it would be filtered out and it would be nothing. So the pain is changing. So as Bob was saying, even monitoring, watching the changes in the pain, in the emotional response to pain, in the ideas that come and go, that brings the label down. It's not just chronic pain and depression, it's just so much more to it. It's so much more to life than that very narrow, how you call it, the identification of the syndrome or symptom. Is really not only looking at it fresh and new, but also looking with that curiosity for change and seeing how the label chronic disease is not really good enough, it's not really explaining the mystery of life and everything. And what else the people with chronic pain told us, that very pain, if they manage to really take the label off and take the idea that it will never change, take the threat of future that is going to be the same or worse, if they can take those ideas out of the head or really just park them aside, just move them aside, the most transformational moments come from that surrender. So I'm really sorry. I think pain and physical pain and the situations like this, the suffering that nothing can be done is very humbling, and yeah, my heart comes out to everyone who has to live that way. And I know people who chose the other way, who chose to check out, and I hope it's not your case, and the surrender will come and the beauty will come, and life will resolve it one way or the other. And meantime, we had another question, Bob. The question was, what is your view on the coronavirus?
Well, there's been all sorts of viruses around before, plagues and all sorts of different things going on in this manifestation. It's constant change, constant coming and going. But volcanoes have exploded, imploded, and millions of people have been wiped out by tidal waves, tsunamis and things like that. It's sure to happen. There's nothing but transience in this manifestation. It's constantly happening. And it all depends how you look at it.
Tell us a joke about the plague.
Well, the fella, this merchant, is going for his morning stroll down to the marketplace in this city years and years ago.
Samaria.
So, and he meets up with the plague. He says, "Hi, plague, how you going?" Plague says, "Fine." He says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well," plague says, "I'm off to Baghdad." He says, "To kill 5,000. "Oh, is that so?" So away they go. Each goes on their own way, and a little while later, a few months later, they're walking down the street again. He meets up with Plague again. He says, "Hey, listen, Plague, you told me the other day, the last month or whenever it was I saw you, that you were going to Baghdad to kill 5,000. He says, "You killed 15,000. And the Plague said, "No, I didn't. I killed 5,000. He says, "But fear killed the rest." And that's applying to these days to all things. There are so many. Look at the panic and things going on right now with this. Like, how many will that destroy or kill also?
I want to add to that too. There is apparently 90% of diseases, heart diseases, hypertension, all diseases that are actually supporting the death in coronavirus. I mean, you know, what they say, the 90% of people who died of corona died not of corona. They died of those associated conditions that aggravated the virus. And those are all stress-related. Those diseases are stress-related. So focusing on fear, on projecting dark scenarios, is creating adrenaline, cortisol, all that hormones in the body that create the acidic environment, which is inviting the virus. So the best way to actually deal with that is like the you know, like plague took 5,000. Don't dwell in the head, in the fear. Don't dwell. I mean, it's a habit. Just recognize the habit and go back to the heart. Because, as Bob often says, we all know what heart to heart, being in the heart. Everyone knows what it means. It is being in the stillness, it's being in the presence, it's being out of the head, because the head is future past, future is fear. And fear is stress, and stress is all the diseases that support, that basically, that create the environment that is unhealthy and is dangerous and is unpleasant also. So just coming back to the heart, to the stillness, to the present moment, and if the old habit pattern of projecting fears come, just move it aside, because the needful will be done anyway. If there is anything that needs to be done, the thought will come, and that thought will create action. If there is shopping to be done or anything else to be done, it will be done, because that intelligence that is giving us thoughts, feelings, and emotions, it is, and it always will run the show. And that very same intelligence creates the patterns of habitual, repetitive fears and black scenarios, but it is mechanical and it can be recognized. And once recognized, it is the act of recognition is already act of disidentifying. So that's.
And don't forget, it is the same intelligence energy that's forming the virus too.
It is, yeah.
Living that and growing and expressing it. Everything is that. So in the scheme of things, there's nothing out of order really, though it might appear to us to be so.
Yeah.
As Kat was saying, you know what a heart to heart is, because these people have got this virus or likely to get it. Doesn't your heart warm towards them straight away? And you say, your heart went out to them. That's not just your mind not going out to them, that's in a sense, that's in the knowing. You'd love to be able to assist or help somebody if you possibly can. And be open to that, and whatever it is for you, that you can do, you might find yourself doing it, where you wouldn't do these things otherwise. And every thought you've ever had or ever likely to have, no thought stuck in your head. But how many of them do we keep there? Wondering and worrying about the evils or unhappiness thing that might occur, that never arrive. How many of those things have we done? Some of them do arrive, some of them do happen. But there's so many through our thinking. As Shakespeare tells us, nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes us so. Can I find any thoughts stitched in my head? There might thoughts that seemingly come up spontaneously day after day for years and years. Isn't it about time we look through them? I know what pain is. I know what so-called suffering is. I know what all these concepts are. I've lived them for much of my life. Some might be others a lot worse than mine have been. But mine were bad enough for me, just the same as yours are bad enough for you. Too much for it.
Yeah.
But most of them have disappeared to this day. Well, I'm still breaking down as old age is creeping on. And the body will continue to break down. And when they're breaking down comes pain and suffering, feeling, bones grinding together, and joints and things like that. And all that, it can be pretty painful. But if not dwelt on, it leaves the self open for some of that pure intelligence is there, which is not fixated into the thoughts and encapsulated in the concept, for some fresh new thought or idea that coming from the pure intelligence itself. So we can remedy it or do what's necessary.
Yeah, there is no more questions for a moment, so you can maybe get back to the spiel.
Oh, I've had enough of that, haven't I?
You had enough, okay. Okay, so please ask questions, otherwise we're gonna have a shorter meeting. Yeah, he doesn't know anything about the virus. He's just playing, living the life. Yeah, so Bob, you have seen a lot of changes during your lifetime. Did you see any social changes coming like this one? Great Depression, people were afraid about losing their jobs, there was shortage of food.
Yeah, I was a depression kid, yeah.
Mm.
But the family managed to get through that all right.
Were people more hostile towards each other, or they were more helpful?
Oh,
All of it.
it's a long way back, trying to remember what was going on there. But then the war came along and took the place of the depression and later.
Yeah. It's been a long time without a change like this in the human history. It's been years from the wars, time of war and depression.
There's still wars going on today in the world.
I mean World War.
Well, they've come and gone.
Yeah.
Supposed to be wars to end all wars, but they haven't.
They haven't, no. I remember the situation because I was growing up in a country that was just recovering from the communism, and that was a social change which was really, really big. And it brought up a lot of things out of people. There was a big, strong background that made people never lost the spirit, and they did exchange goods between themselves, they assist themselves, and they really bonded in a way that this social order that we have now did not support. But there, of course, were people who would abuse power as well, like we have seen here already. People having a little bit of power and feeling that because they can, they'll use it. So yes, the changes will be interesting. I mean, of course, there will be heartbreaking changes as well. A lot of people is going to miss the comfort of knowing how the tomorrow is going to look and where the next meal is coming from. A lot of jobs that is going to be unavailable, or businesses that is going to bankrupt. But yeah, change is the only constant. It is inevitable. It is how we gonna deal with that. How are we gonna stay fresh and new? Are we gonna stay out of that dark scenarios and fear of the head? Because if we are in the heart, the right ideas will come in the right time, and the best way of dealing with the situation moment to moment will be available. So that seems like the way to be. But again, that has to be a recognition of moment to moment that life it is changing, and maybe it will be changing a little bit faster, or maybe not. And well, it could have been much worse. I mean, apparently a virus which is dangerous for up to 15% of population and average 2% or 2.5%, it could have been worse. So I think there is still a room for gratitude, and still a room for preparation and staying as healthy and as immunized. I mean, keeping the immune system healthy, which is first of all reducing the stress and the fear, and then after that having a decent hygiene of health and food and everything. So yeah, let's see the changes. The cats are ready for it. They just playing. When things come up to deal with, they deal with. When they don't, they enjoy the now. Now Julia is saying something, and I hope it will be heard when I read it. So Julia is saying, I need to make a decision, but do not want to make it from fear. But I can't ignore that fears are motivating the thought of making this decision. All thoughts are coming from one consciousness, but sometimes it seems that decisions from fear should be avoided. Can you comment on this?
Yeah. Well, the fear and everything else have their effect on decisions too. Sometimes that's how the way it's got to happen. We can be that stubborn that we won't listen or recognise what's coming through. If it didn't come through from some fear-based or some negative-based thing. But it still comes out the same way if it's utilised instead of using us. It might bring about another activity, thought or whatever, in which way to go.
Yeah, and I would say that the general view to avoid the decisions based on fear is incorrect, because if you think of a basic survival of the animals in the bush, and people also a long time ago, if you didn't take decision based on fear when the tiger was attacking you, that would be a bad decision. So it really is more about taking decisions from the center of action and not from the head. Just move all the thoughts away and see what is the impulse from the body, what action the body would take if there was no commentary going on. Whether the impulse you call fear is just a bubbling life, or you call it excitement, it's a bubbling life. The thing is, there is an action already, just the same way your bladder is full and the action of getting up and going to the bathroom arises from that sensation. The same way decisions, there is an action thought available which doesn't contain any words. It's just an impulse. I think there was another question there. That is from Helen. Fear has been throughout my life, but now I can seem to sit with it. Wonderful. But thoughts are attached like I am frightened of my death. It is difficult to be with fear without thoughts attacking.
Yeah. Is there a thinker of the thoughts though? When you look at that, thoughts arise.
Yes.
And if not related to the thinker, me, what are they? They're just another sensation or thought or word or label.
Yeah, beautiful.
Just realise that thinking happens, seeing happens, just the same as fear, anger and all these things occur. They seemingly come up. But when we say, I fear, I think, or I'm unhappy, we're relating it to a separate entity, a seeming individual, me or I. But can there be the thought, I think, without thinking? Can there be the thought, I see, without seeing? You're seeing and the hearing and the tasting is going on. Yeah. Then we say, I see, I think, I feel. We're relating it to the separate, believed in separate entity, and we formed a subject. Instead of just saying it's another part of it, we say that now I see or I think is me, the conceptual image, a subject. I see this or I see that, and the this I see becomes the thinker, and the this or that becomes the thought. But can there be a seer, a thinker without thinking? Can there be the thought without thinking? Can there be the seer without seeing? Can there be the hearing without hearing? So seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, thinking, the ing on it is something that's happening right in the immediacy. It's happening right now. As we put the IC on it, we've separated into the believed in individual. So
that is the point, yes.
Realise they can't Can't be a seer without seeing. There can't be a thinker without thinking. So you are the livingness, the breathing, the seeing, the tasting, the touching, the smelling, the knowing, the wearing, or whatever you like to put on it right now. Yeah. Instead of the seer, the thinker, instead of believing there is a separate entity and an individual or a person there. As soon as that separate entity or an individual or a believed in person is there, there's problems. Mm-hmm. Problems, because you've separated yourself from the whole. Any sense of separation is isolation. Yeah. And insecurity. If you're isolated from something and insecure, you're very insecure and separate from it. Mm. That's the cause of all your problems. If you're the totality, what does it matter if it's fear, anger, depression, guilt, or unhappiness or what? If it's all that, where is it going to lodge? Are you going to divide it or split it up? Or leave it as it is, knowing very well that it'll change. It's transient. Everything in this manifestation is constantly transient. Like the body you got up with this morning is not the same body you got right now. The cells dying and being replaced. It's transient. It's expressing ever freshly and ever newly, momentarily, not time-bound. Yeah. Change. You are the changing. You are the seeing. You are the hearing. Mm. You are that.
Yes.
And put it to the Satchit and Andy. Are you existing? You realise, yes, I'm existing. Are you conscious? Yes, I'm conscious. Are you happy to be? Yeah, I'm loving to be. Are you existing consciousness? Being, you are already that. Already.
And the thoughts of fear of death, they are thoughts of love for life. And yeah, as Bob said, you're not your thoughts. The thoughts are just appearance in a consciousness. You are the space of thinking, space of seeing, space of everything. And yeah, we can't stop thinking, we can't stop thoughts, let them be. It's just that when they are recognized for what they are, they're thoughts. They're not reality, they're not description of reality, they're not even interpretation of reality, because they're not true. No thought is ever true. So the thought of fear is just an option, but we don't have to take it on board. We can have a few other thoughts of hope, or thoughts of faith, or thoughts of, yeah, I've been looked after by life, and I'll always be looked after. Those are options. They're not true either. But when we see more than one thought as an option, we know we don't have to take any of them. But yeah, I do love the idea of, I'm fearing death because I cherish life so much. That's quite beautiful. I think there was some other thing here was from Kiran. And she says, do you feel this will bring about a mass shift in consciousness? I can't help but feel that this is the event the world needs to see through the illusion.
Oh. How many fears have been there that have just been personal and not contained to the world? Have you seen through the illusion yet? You need to really look and recognise that it is an illusion and investigate it, go to the core of it. Who is it happening to? And realise that it can only and ever happen to a believed in separate entity, me, or a person. And that word person, where did it come from? The ancient language Latin, I think it was persona, the mask. We've got a mask of concepts. We've built this conceptual image. That's all it is, a mask. That we're wearing this mask of concepts and not recognising our true nature. And when it's all a singularity, and I tell you, let it rest in its uncontrived singularity. Let everything be as it is. What is means unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. What can alter it, modify it or correct it? Just another thought, feeling or emotion.
What Kiran was suggesting, that perhaps the situation, the world situation, the life situation may be assisting the process of awakening in people.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful thought, what a beautiful idea. I mean, we still have to remember that that is just an idea, that is just a beautiful dream, and act of believing in that dream is act of love, really, and hope and good wish for the humanity. But it is still just a part of the dance, because what is going to happen and how it is going to happen. And yes, they were wars and famines and tragedies, and
they've changed the world,
and they have changed the world, and they caused some suffering, enough of the suffering to start investigation in some people, and they cause the opposite in the others. And like I was saying, during the communism, people were the world was changing. The world as we knew it was ending, and unknown was coming, and there was a lot of fear. And people found the way to assist each other and help each other and be kind to each other. What I experience here is quite the opposite, because people are abusing power right now. This is what happened to us. But perhaps when that intensity will grow, the goodness will also come. And some people may see through the illusion because of that. Some people may not. And that doesn't really matter at all. It matters for individual, but for the space as the collective, space is never obscured. No matter how much clouds are on the sky is always clear. Whether that clarity expresses itself through the individual or not, of course it matters for the individual, but whether it matters for the collective or not, no, it doesn't.
There will always be some that'll recognise their true nature and step out of the trap, and others will continue to stay in it.
Yeah.
Like again, going back to the plagues and the Great Fire of London. That cleared out and brought about changes, cleared out so many things, you see. There's a cleansing process seemingly goes on, gets obscured again.
Yeah, what Kieran is saying now, in this separation, it has never been so clear just how interconnected we all are.
Oh, good. That's we're doing its purpose there, good for you.
And then Kieran, see, this is you. This is your awakening. There is only you. There is no one else. Everyone else is a dream of yours, and you just waking up. Beautiful. You see how interconnected we and everything else are. That's it. Welcome home. And there is another from Helen. Thank you. Yes, I know these thoughts became personal, but when caught in it, it's difficult to pull back into non-personal, but I'll try. And there is one more. Oopsie. You are both so beautiful. Thank you.
Yes, it's difficult to pull back, but once they remember how these thoughts got reinforced. They were repeated day in, day out, every time they come out without question. Now you start to question them and have a look a bit further. And the more intently you recognise and look at it, the more likely to see the clarity through it, and it'll teach you the way to go.
And Mukti is sending love from Jane to everyone.
Who?
Mukti from Jane.
Good.
And Kieran says, control is hard to seemingly let go of. Control is hard to let go. I suffer needlessly due to a feeling of needing certainty.
Well, as I pointed before about the thinking and the saying, there is controlling. There is no controller. The controller is the controlled.
That is so good. Yes.
Just the same as the thinker is to do it. That there is controlling, and that controlling will be spontaneous if it's allowed to be.
That's right.
But then you can take delivery it, or I control that, or something like that if you like, but it's the controlling.
And Kiran says, we are beautiful. Thank you, beautiful people. Yes, that stuff about control. If you see that controlling is an impulse, is a life-designed impulse. Like imagine if a tigress didn't control her little cubs, they wouldn't survive. But taking credit for the control, I do the controlling, I am evil, I should not do the control. That's where the problem starts. Also the same thing with certainty. We look for the certainty in the head. We promise ourselves that things will never change and we will be safe when we have enough money or enough supplies, toilet papers or whatever. There is no certainty. Certainty is illusion. It is nonsense, it's bullshit. There is only this moment. Future is mystery. Future does not even exist. But if it exists at all, it exists as absolute mystery that nobody can get prepared. And there is no certainty. Finding comfort in no certainty, in the fact that you can never be sure of a next minute or next moment, next second, that's the freedom. Because then you can really let go of the control or attempt of controlling and let life leave you, because it did it effectively till now without any me trying to superimpose on it. Of course, there is an illusion that there is a me superimposing on life or taking credit for life. But in fact, it is always only life. Nobody else have ever done anything and will never do anything. Mukti says she wrote a question up. I'll see if I can find it. Can you talk? Oh yes. Can you talk about procrastination? Is there such a thing, really?
Well, again, who could procrastinate?
Yeah.
If you're not moved to do it, something stops you from moving it in the moment.
But I love the question, Mukti. This is a brilliant question. It's especially the second part. Is there such a thing, really? Everything that exists because it has been labeled out of nothing, of pure homogeneous blob of probability. So the moment you label something procrastination, you give it a life.
Yeah.
You make it real. Oh yeah, now such a thing exists. But does it really exist? Things either happen or it don't. Either the action thought or the movement comes out from the heart or gut and thing is done, or it is not. The rest is a story. It's just an unquestioned story. But I love the question. Thank you. It's a really good point. And there is another one, Alison. Even though I see the truth, I still act out of ego. How do I stop?
Do you act out of what?
Ego.
Well, question again. Who is the ego? Who is the ego? The conceptual image you have about yourself. Why do you relate it to me or I, which is the ego?
Yeah.
When there's just a spontaneous happening.
And also, do we really act out of ego, or we just take credit for actions? We act out of habit, not of ego, because there is no such a thing as ego. Ego is again just an idea, a concept labeled out of nothing. The habit may be to act. The pattern comes like jealousy or anger, and the response comes habitually from that pattern. So we act out of habit. And then the idea comes, oh, this was me, this was my ego. This is just a thought, taking credit for the unconscious mechanical pattern. The way to stop it is to recognize that unconscious mechanical pattern. Let's say if the anger comes up, I recognize the anger. Oh, right. And again, I say I recognize the anger. There is a recognition of the anger because there is no entity recognizing it. But just that type of dawning, that was habitual. And then seeing that things were habitual, first post factum, and then later on, during the action, that recognition may come. I'm acting out of anger and I see the mechanicalness of it already. And then my engagement is not going to be full anymore. I'm not going to be that involved anymore because part of the attention is out of it in that field or space of recognition.
Look at the anger as a present sensation.
Yeah.
Again, like I pointed out before, just fresh and new sensation.
Yeah.
What happens is not putting the old label anger on it, and I'll really look into it now. This has stirred the feelings and emotions up, which I call anger, but I don't see it as anger anymore. I see it as fresh and new. Really look at it in a different light and see what comes up then.
Yeah. Yeah. Be curious. Discover. Be the explorer. And most of all, try not to judge the judgments, because what we do when anger comes up, we were conditioned to judge anger as bad or evil, and get angry that we got angry, or get disappointed that we are disappointed, and we are unhappy because we are unhappy. That's the unnecessary part of it, because when we look at the world of nature, of animals, they do seemingly have that similar surge of energy that makes dogs bark at each other. We could anthropomorphize it to jealousy or anger or competition, but it doesn't really matter. It's a surge of energy. So the same surge of energy coming through me, and I can label it anger, or I can just leave it as it is. And when I have no story about it, I cannot, when I don't have primary story about it, like even a label, I cannot make a secondary story. Like I cannot be, if I don't call it anger, I cannot be angry that I got angry, because I don't really, having no words or having no possibility to identify it as anything, it will just go like a cloud through the sky. It won't be kept here by attention, by belief. I'll see if we have any more. Yes, Kiran says, when things go right, I am in control. When things go wrong, I've lost control. Neither are right, but hard to see that. Beautiful statement, so true.
Again, who's the I that's judging it all?
Yes.
So if there's no I to discriminate them, we're the right and wrong keep, it goes, doesn't it? It changes.
Yeah, but it is a really good illustration of the tendency. Like, this is healthy tendency on your side, that, you want to take credit for good actions, and you lost the control, so you don't really take credit for the bad actions. There are people who are much, much less healthy, much more disturbed, and they will only take credit for the things they were wrong. Oh, I screwed up, not I lost the control. No, I did it all wrong because I'm worthless. So, but either way, that's just two sides of the same coin. Not taking credit is the right approach, is the correct, it is humble approach, because who am I to take credit for anything in life if I see how, this is your word, everything's interconnected. Like, even if I screw up something, let's say I do something stupid, or I have an accident because I was inattentive, this very fact is not my credit entirely. It may be my credit in 0.0000%, because what contributed to that action is the whole world, is the weather, is my hormones, is my diet, is my parents' musical tastes when my mom was pregnant, and her conditioning from her parents and their parents, and the political system and everything else. So I have control? No, I have illusion of control. Drop it. I lost the control? No, I never had it. So life is always in charge, and life expresses through available pattern. So if the pattern is there to take credit for the control, it will come up. Oh, I'm in charge, I have control, or I don't. But this pattern can be again recognized. Oh, it feels like I'm driving my car. Of course it feels this way, but do you really do it? You don't even know how to pump the blood to your arms. You don't even know how to lead the neurons on your networks to recognize the road signs. You don't really do it. But it feels this way, because that's the grand illusion. That's the beautiful, great Maya, that everything feels this way, and it's so well done that it fools the best. It fools the best of us, and it is meant to do it, because otherwise there would be no manifestation, there would be no life, there would be no beauty.
We've got to use the term I, that's the way we've learned to express as a thought, but know that there's no personal I, it's just a way of saying it.
Yeah.
I see, I hear, I feel.
Mm.
You're not going to shut the me off just for the sake of expressing it correctly grammatically.
Yeah.
Just the same as you still see the blue sea, but you know the sea is not blue.
That's right. Mm.
You know, when you know the truth about something, now it appears to be the same.
Mm.
I see, or I feel, or I think, we say that, but who can see, hear, or think? Is there a person? Is there a separate entity? Or is it the totality? Instead of taking the totality as doing it all, we've got the idea that there's a separate entity, an individual, a person that's doing it.
Yeah. So there is another question from Ari Kushi. What is the best way to deal with physical pain?
See a doctor, get some ointment or something put on to it.
Yeah, that's the... every physical pain is different. Like Bob has the physical pain in his knees, and he did so the doctor, he does put ointments, he eats alkaline, and he does a lot of different things. But if he had the physical pain of a cut, that would be completely different approach. Or physical pain of a migraine, that's a different approach again. So the best way is not to have any fixed ideas, but just clear your head, just get out of the thinking and back to the heart or to the gut instinct and see what comes up from there. Because what may come up, it may come up to research something on Google or go to the doctor or take some herb. Every single situation will be unique and different.
Or somebody might come along with a good remedy.
Yes.
What's going on?
Yes, now we have 20 people with us, but seems like we've answered all the questions. And we have beautiful wishes to stay safe and to be good and words of love and beauty. But yeah, we need some food for discussion.
Need some what?
Ideas, questions.
Oh, how long's...
It's 11:15. Yes, so if we don't get any more questions, we may wrap up, and we may just we are investigating or exploring ideas of what to do for the weekday meetings, which are evening meetings. For America, it will be too late, but for Europe, we have one option is to do Skype conference. But for this one, we would like people to give us the Skype number, either to Skype ID, either through email or Facebook Messenger. Don't do it public.
This is all new for me, this sort of thing.
Yeah, you're familiar with Skype, but yes, not the conference. Yeah, another option is Zoom, and yeah, we tested them both last week, and they seem quite similar. For Zoom, we'll have to pay. And we may just publish the link if there will be a Zoom conference. So please watch the Facebook Live, and if you want to, generally the Facebook page of Bob, if you want to join us on the evening meetings, you're welcome. You'll just be clicking on the link, or give us a Skype ID for the Skype conference. That will be an option too. For Australia, it's easy. For other countries, we'll just upload this one on YouTube and try to have it once a week if we have participants talking to us. We'll just improvise one day at a time. Tony is suggesting let's flag virtual lunch. Virtual lunch.
Who'd say that?
Tony. And she's also asking if we can't do Facebook during the week. We could. And Helen is asking, when you mention there are no others, I have heard this before, but when you said it, I felt so excited.
Which Helen is this?
I don't know if she has been here before in our place. It is not the Helen you think about. Yeah, it is another way to look at this is what Bob beautifully says in one-liner, one essence, expressing, appearing and experiencing itself as everything, or emptiness, forming, shaping and manifesting as every form. It is always only one. And yes, it is exciting.
The amazing ways that pattern shapes and forms and expresses.
And Mukti says there is great peace without me.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a great peace without me.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we can wrap it up and thank you everyone. So yes, Tony, there is a possibility if Bob is happy to speak to the empty room and then just do what we do right now. I mean, we have a couple of cats playing here. Then we could do the Facebook Live on a weekday as well. A conference we tried, it worked pretty well as well. So we may experiment and see what comes strong. So thank you everyone.
Thank you.